Well, hello, I'm Chris, and this is my wiring a modern radio into an old car video. So what do I mean by old car? Old cars, like this 70 Chevelle, typically don't have any wiring or anything in them. So in this video, we're going to be doing everything. We're going to be wiring the speakers in, the back ones, the front ones, wiring the radio. We're going to be doing this legit and nice and neat as possible. But the main thing about the radio is the old cars don't have a constant hot. So I'm going to be giving you a real good idea how to safely and correctly run a constant red wire for the radio. So I have a video on here showing how I cut that dash out. It's pretty simple, but watch it if you're going to cut yours out. So this is the dash whenever I get vintage air. I'm going to put the other style radio in it. And even if you're putting one of these modern radios, they still have to be wired up the same way. Okay, so we're going to be putting this radio in. This was a top of the line in 2002. The only reason it's still usable is because it had this fancy plug added to it and actually has an auxiliary hookup. That's all I need. But check that out. Who even had an iPhone in 2002? But anyway. Okay, so we're going to be going over all the problems you're going to have with speakers. These are the original speaker grills that I'm using. Okay, so this is a 70 Chevelle. I don't know what package trays are the same, but if you're doing one of these cars, I have a video showing you how I made that, giving dimensions and everything. The reproduction, don't even waste your money on it. It's a piece of garbage. This is plywood. And we even made the little strip that tucks under the seat. So you do it however you want, but I'm running it through that plastic thing. But in order to access that, we got to undo all this wiring. See, that's the only way to access that, unless you want to try to fish them through the trunk, but that's going to be very difficult. So you see the speaker stuff we're using. This is just stuff I've gotten in trades over the years. We're going to end up using these, and I'll show you why. These suck. Don't ever buy them. As far as sound is concerned, if you have a nice V8 car with quiet exhaust and good insulation, you know, get you some good speakers if you can. But if your car is like mine, it really doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to hear the radio anyway. So, and I'm being serious about that, because check this out. You can't hear nothing. Just sitting in the car. So I mean, that's just really like honest advice. Like if your car is quiet, put a system in it. But if it's loud, I'm telling you, you're just gonna end up wasting your money. You're not gonna hear it. Been there, done that. Okay, so now we're gonna do the back speakers. Okay, so these are the original speaker grills. The speakers mounted from the bottom. That's how we're gonna do them on this car. But nobody is gonna hate you if you cut the holes out and add something like that. If you have to do that, you have to do that. Okay, so the first problem you're gonna have with the speakers is that these sit flush, right? Every speaker I have here pokes up a little bit. You can tear this off. This is just a tweeter, but that's not really a good idea to try to take this off. So what do we have to do? We have to space this. Trying to run these factory style, you're gonna run into a lot of issues. Because see, we have to space that. So just cutting a hole out and dropping these in there might be a lot easier if you don't have all the parts and stuff like I have to work with. These speakers that I bought, they came with these grills. Okay, so take this off. The reason I had to use these is because see, they got this like built up place on them. Using that grill as a spacer. See? And now we have to put this on there and see if we have enough thread left. That's another problem. See, we barely have enough thread left. Now these speakers right here, they suck. Don't ever buy these. I got these in a trade. I got 2 of them, so I'm gonna use them. Okay, if you're using old wire, man, you better look at that stuff, because look. Check that out. So if you're mounting it from the bottom, your butt is getting in the trunk. Fuck. Okay, I've spent 2 hours trying to figure out what to do now. So I'm starting to figure out why everybody ditches these. The problem that we're having is, it seems like all the speakers now, they pop up right here. You have to use a spacer. And we don't have enough thread left. I finally figured out what I'm gonna do. Now we are gonna rig it up, but it's gonna be fine. So just showing you that in case you're using these, you gotta get some speakers that don't pop up. So what we're gonna do is just screw the spacer to this piece. Okay, so that's screwed to that. only thing I could figure out is drill some holes, and we're gonna have to screw the speaker to the plastic thing. Okay, so I have all kinds of screws, but the sheetrock screw actually is the perfect length, and it has the threads we need. Okay, but you look at the speaker, I mean, we got room to drill holes there. Oh yeah, that's nice, that's perfect. Screwing this to the grill first. Don't hate me for using those sheetrock screws. They're not my concern right now. My concern is the plastic that I screwed into. Hopefully that doesn't vibrate and break, but if it does, I'll let y'all know in one of my videos, and then we'll go back and fix them better. But for right now, this is fine. These speakers are just cheap speakers that I got in a trade. Who cares? You see why I did that? That just, to me, looks freaking fancy. You never see cars with this anymore. Well, you do sometimes. Okay, so now we're gonna be doing the front speakers. The only advice about buying front speakers is make sure your car is together before you get the speakers. I actually bought these before I was done. Speakers are real expensive, man. Two of these were like 50 bucks, and these are just regular. I had a lot of issues, and they want to hit right here on the 70 through 72 Chevelle, so I had to re-modify my modified bracket. Here's the twice modified factory bracket. See why we use the factory bracket, because it has this extra support. Okay, you see how we had to get creative right here. Just make sure the wiring is out of the way. This is where we're going to run our wires through, and these wires are going to be permanent. In other words, these are going to be there forever. For regular radios, you just need something like this, but there are different gauges. I like to run this to the back, permanent. It's big enough for some good 6x9s later. Okay, so we're going to be running one of these through this thing too, just in case we run an amp. You know, you just need regular stuff like this for regular amps. I would just put a 300 watt amp with just a small subwoofer. I mean, that's all I need. But just cables like that, it doesn't really matter. Just make sure you got one that's long enough. Okay, so since this is running through the floor, we're gonna have to make a permanent connection. So we're gonna solder these. I'm gonna give you a real quick idea how to do that. Alright, so always mark your wires. There's a negative and a positive. We got a solid wire on this side, wire with a stripe on that side. You're gonna spread these open, push them together. Now use these little ones to bail them up, wrap them up, and they will hold them together. Now we're gonna solder them. So just heat the wire up until you feel the insulation getting warm. Okay, just do that all the way around the wire. And if you solder them like that, man, that thing is permanent. Do that. So you see this plastic conduit thing, how it's ran real neat. We have the permanent speaker wires, factory wires, then we have this RCA cable in case we need it. Now we run that because if we ever put our kick panels in with speakers, this is the kind of stuff we're going to use to run them through the amp. So we're going to go ahead and wire in the radio, but I got a really good deal on this on Craigslist, and we're going to go ahead and wire in the subwoofer and the amp after the radio to give you a real good idea how to do that. Okay, so we got 5 wires here. We only have 3 in the dash harness. Yellow is constant 12 volts hot, ground. Red is switched on 12 volts with the key. Orange is illumination. Blue, very important in this situation because we're going to run an amp now. Blue is a remote to your amp. So we will be connecting this one. So we have these 3 wires. These are the 2 we got to make. So we need a constant hot all the time. So if we need a constant hot, what do? This harness only has on with the key, illumination, and a ground. That's factory wiring on a 70 Chevelle or old car. That's usually people's favorite place to go is a cigarette lighter. It's constant all the time. You really need to look in your fuse box and see what other circuit is ran with that cigarette lighter. Now usually what happens is you got your radio on and then you use your cigarette lighter and it pops a fuse. And the first thing people do, they go put a bigger fuse or they jump the fuse. That's a very dangerous situation, but you do what you want at your own car. A lot of people run them off the cigarette lighter, but in this video we're not going to do that. You're going to need one of these things with at least a 10 amp fuse in it. Okay, but if for some reason you are just set on running it off the cigarette lighter, no big deal to you, and I've done it too, everybody does it, just make damn sure you put a fuse in that wire going to the radio. This would be a fused from the modern radio to the amp, so we're going to be using this with a fuse, 10 amp fuse at least. Okay, so this is all extra wiring, so you just got to figure out a place. Chevelle has this little area right through here. It's perfect. Blue wire for the remote to the amp. You want the fuse in the general location of what it's feeding. So this fuse is very important that it's over there by the amp. You don't want that blue fuse in the freaking dashboard. It's got a long side and a short side. You want the fuse by the radio. We're gonna put an end on this and we're gonna put it into the fuse box. Okay, make sure it's a 10 amp fuse. 15 amp is fine if that's all you have, but 10 amp fuse is our power, constant power to our radio. So if you have a position on your fuse box, this is probably the best place to run it. That's how I'm running it on this car, so that whoever gets it knows that there's an accessory ran on it and they're gonna find out that this goes to the modern radio. Now we are running an amp. We do have this RCA cable, but we're not going to use it. We want to use the best one that we can. So we're going to go ahead and run this RCA cable with the blue wire. So when you're buying one of these cables, very important you get one that's 20 feet long. We had that 10-foot one in there and you seen it didn't go all the way. So this one actually feels even flimsier than the red and white one that I put in the car, but this is good. I've used these before. So now we got these three that go to the radio. Now we need to figure out how to run them in the dash and get them over here as neatly as possible. So you want everything to hang out here. You want to be able to hook the radio up right here, put it in. You don't want to make no short wiring harness. Been there, done that. Don't do it. See, I had to solder extensions on to the factory plug to make them come out here. Okay, and it doesn't matter how smart you are or what you think you know, mark all your wires. The phone rings, you get thirsty, you get up, you come over here, you have no idea what you just did, okay? Front right. So we have everything marked, ready to go. Now we have to get these onto this plug. Okay, so don't let this ever intimidate you. Power wires, speaker wires. So the plug goes in there like this. It's kind of self-explanatory. You got white for left, gray for right, front speakers, see they're on top, right, left, see how they're the way they are in the car. So speakers are very simple. So never permanently wire a radio in. You can if you want to, if you're going to buy that radio for the rest of your life. So you can twist it, tape it up. We're just going to use these. These are kind of too big, but hopefully they work. Now it's very important that you've already been under your dash and laid these out as comfortable as possible. The orange ones were too big, so I went and bought these today. These are the right ones. Now we're going to retape this. So this aftermarket radio, we have a bracket here that I made for support that's going to screw into the back of the radio. It's already been aligned up and adjusted. One of my dash videos I talk about that. I don't remember which video it is. You can't just leave that radio hanging in there. There has to be some kind of support. So let's get the radio in. All we're going to do is just plug it up and screw it in back here. Alright, so one thing about the radio is this comes off. And the correct way to put the radio in is you stick this in there, and it has those little triangle things, and you're going to pull them out to lock it in. But if you look straight through there, you'll see our bracket. Very important you have something to reinforce this, because it could possibly break or do something stupid. So just be aware that you cannot just leave this freaking thing hanging in that cutout. Know what you're hooking up. This goes to the amp. It has a set of extra ones. Look for plugs like that on your radio. If you have an old radio with nothing on it, modern stuff, they'll have a plug on it like that where you can add your iPhone auxiliary and all kinds of stuff like that. This one has that plug. That's why I didn't buy a new radio, because it's still good. And I don't have a windshield, so I'm not hooking the antenna. Hook the freaking antenna up. This is very important. We haven't checked anything. We're going to see if this thing even works. Okay, man. What? It's my old CD I had in here. I took this out of my truck 5 years ago. Let's hear what it's got in it. I have no idea what CD this is. Oh, dude! Wow, man. It's so freaking weird that is in this car right now. Those are only the freaking front speakers. That's cool. I forgot to hook up the back ones. I'm gonna hook them up now. All right. Alright, your radio should be wired to accessories. Okay, when you click back, not ignition, but it comes on with ignition. Okay, now these speakers I put in the back, they're cheaper 6x9s. The only problem with them is they don't have any freaking bass at all. They sound good. In this situation, it's perfect. Now this radio sounds exactly like you want a radio to sound in a car like this because you really can't hear nothing. So let's check that out. Can't really hear it. Everything worked out with the radio. Now let's wire in the amp. Okay, so now we're going to wire this amp up and subwoofer. Whenever we did the radio, we hooked this up to the back of the radio and we ran a blue remote wire to turn our amp on. So I don't know what 8 gauge is good for. I don't know if that's a 1000-watt amp, but we're just running a 300, so this is overkill. But since this kit did come with this, we're going to go ahead and run this the correct way in case I want to put a bigger amp in there in the future. So you must buy you one of these kits if you want to have a good time doing this job. It was only freaking 20 bucks. It comes with this fuse. Do not run this fuse in the freaking engine bay. I have seen so many freaking people. I don't know what it is about stuff like this that they just want to put it somewhere so it looks like they customize their car. Don't put this in the freaking engine bay. Put this somewhere back here. I don't know where we're gonna mount this amp. I might just mount the damn thing on top of the box right there. First thing is to make sure we have enough wire. So we're gonna wire off a positive battery. We're gonna run it hiding where you cannot see this. Run it back through here, through the firewall with our grommet oil pressure water line, through there, through the hole. So let's see if it fits. Okay, so we're just gonna look at this so you get an idea how to run yours. Through there. So that's the grommet for my water oil temperature. Right through there. I didn't want to run it this way, but I'm gonna have to. Over here to positive. We're gonna cover it up with this. Hopefully we don't notice it, but it's gonna go back in that little corner and pop out over here and try to hide this the best we can. That's the whole point of this. So one of the things that nobody ever talks about is crimping the ends on these big wires. 8 gauge wires really need a special crimper, like a big heavy duty real expensive one. We're gonna try to get away with it with just normal crimpers, but just letting you know that. See what I'm saying? You ain't gonna do that with the regular pair of crimpers. I have like a $50, $60 pair. We might get away with it. See how we got it hidden back there. Power under the battery tray. That's gonna come up right here, and it's gonna be very discreet, hidden. So I'm gonna go ahead and wire this amp up in case you have no idea, because it can be confusing the first time you do one. Okay, so if somebody knows about speaker wire, maybe the gauges are different in the speaker world, but this is a 10 gauge and this is a 6 gauge. So if that was a 8 gauge, it would be right in the middle, and it's not. But what was weird about that is it gives you these massive connectors in the kit, and that's not a good idea. See, these are 6 gauge connectors. See the 6 gauge wire? So the connectors they gave me were screwed up. But the reason I'm showing you that is because check it out, and I was able to use these 10 gauge connectors and it worked out real nice. Here's our ground. We are gonna have to drill a hole into the body of the car. The ground in the trunk, we're gonna have to drill a hole somewhere in here. So let's look for a hole first. You can see a hole right on that seat thing right there. That's where I'm gonna ground it. Okay, so all this is gonna be in that compartment, but I'm gonna have to cut this box. So right now we're just doing it right here, testing everything out. Okay, we got the ground screwed over there. Ground. So this is the power wire going to the battery. We have not connected it yet. It's kind of a better idea to put the fuse in the engine bay where you can see it. Power wire going to 12 volts right here. The remote wire. Always tug on them, make sure. So that's all we did right there. For this side, we have this wire to the subwoofer. Make sure negative's on negative. This is coming from our radio. It's got input, output. Everything is ready to go. Put all the settings down on 0 just to start it off. We're gonna check this out now and see what this thing sounds like. Okay, so I got it hooked up. Let's check the difference out. Now this is not no bassy music. This is just classic rock with no subwoofer. Sounds fine. Okay, so that's about it. That thing is freaking awesome. I paid $100 for that, 20 for the installation kit. I've had that radio, so I got about $150 in this system on this car, and that's really all you need. Anything bigger than that, man, you're just gonna piss people off. This actually pisses people off too, but it's not that bad. You can turn it down. Everything worked out. That thing sounds freaking awesome. Now I just have to figure out how to get all that in there in that little space as neat as possible. So that's it for the radio. Everything works, everything sounds good. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.